The scream sliced through the boardroom like a blade. Incompetent. My father, Charles Bennett, slammed a thick stack of papers onto the polished mahogany table of Bennett Global Holdings Executive Suite. Rain lashed the 47th floor windows of our Manhattan tower, relentless drumbeat amplifying the chaos. Every head in the room, board members, assistants, Nathan, swiveled to me. Alexis Bennett, 22, 6 months out of Wharton, and now the family's designated fall guy. You nearly sold Maritime for peanuts. Dad roared, his face a dangerous shade of red, veins throbbing at his temples. Half its worth, Alexis. Do you even get what you've done? I gripped the arms of my leather chair, nails digging into the upholstery, forcing my voice to stay level. It was a draft, Dad. The numbers were off, but it's not signed. I can fix it. Fix it. My older brother Nathan cut in, his laugh sharp and cruel. He leaned back in his Armani suit, hazel eyes glinting with venom. You're a liability, Lex. Told you she'd choke, Dad. The contract at the heart of this storm was for Bennett Maritime, the shipping division that had anchored our family empire for 3 generations. My first big assignment since joining the company, and I'd screwed it up, used outdated valuation data from a year-old report, pegging the fleet at $600 million instead of its current $1.2 billion. A rookie slip, born from an all-nighter juggling this deal and a tech acquisition, but it was still just a draft, not a handshake. You'd think I'd torched the building from the way they were acting. Nathan leaned forward, elbows on the table, smirking like a cat with a pinned mouse. She's not cut out for this. Never has been. I've been saying it since she waltzed in here with that shiny degree. That's when I caught it, the flicker of triumph in his eyes. This wasn't about my mistake. He'd been waiting for me to stumble. Nathan, 2 years my senior, had always been the golden boy, the heir apparent. But I'd been the one Dad bragged about, straight A's, late nights, studying while Nathan partied through Dartmouth. Now that I was in the company, he saw me as a threat, and he was loving every second of my humiliation. Dad's voice dropped to a chilling growl. You're done, Alexis. Done with this company. Done with this family. The air vanished from my lungs. I turned to my mother, Victoria, perched at the table's edge in her flawless Chanel suit, platinum hair swept into a chignon. Mom, I croaked, begging for a lifeline. She didn't meet my eyes. Her manicured fingers toyed with her pearls as she murmured, It's for the best, darling. Her tone smooth as glass and twice as cold. 10 minutes later, I stumbled out of the tower into the storm, rain soaking through my charcoal suit, my heels skidding on wet pavement. My phone buzzed, HR email. My Bennett email, phone, and cards were frozen. The family that had drilled legacy into me, work hard, uphold the name, never falter, had just cut me loose like a bad investment. That night, I barged into Dad's study at our Upper East Side mansion, damp shoes leaving faint streaks on the Persian rug. The room smelled of aged leather and bourbon, oak shelves lined with books and stern oil portraits of Bennett patriarchs, staring down in judgment. Charles stood by the fireplace, swirling a glass of amber liquid, his broad shoulders rigid. He didn't look up as I stormed in. Your position's terminated, he said, flat, as if firing a temp. The board voted this afternoon. It's over. You've got to be kidding me, I snapped, my voice trembling with fury and disbelief. One mistake after 6 months of killing myself. 80-hour weeks, no weekends, no life, and you're tossing me out? I deserve better than this. He turned, gray eyes hard as stone. You humiliated us in front of the board, Alexis. Nathan warned me you'd buckle. He was right. Nathan, I hissed, the name acid on my tongue. My brother had resented me since we were kids, since I'd outshone him without trying. I flashed back to 5th grade. My model rocket took first at the science fair, and Nathan tripped, smashing it to bits with a smirk. He'd been sabotaging me for years, and now he'd gone corporate with it. The heavy door swung open behind me. Nathan strolled in, arms crossed, that same damn smirk plastered on his face. Told you, Dad, he said, voice dripping with smugness. She's weak. I'll handle it from here. You backstabbing snake, I snarled, stepping toward him, fists clenched. This isn't about the company. It's about your pathetic ego. He laughed, low and mocking, setting my blood on fire. Someone had to save Bennett Global from your screw-ups, little sister. I've been carrying this family while you play dress-up in the boardroom. Carrying us? I closed the gap, voice rising. You've been coasting on Grandpa's legacy, schmoozing the board while I did the grunt work, crunching numbers, building deals, learning the ropes. You're a fraud. Enough. Charles barked, slamming his glass onto the mantel so hard the bourbon sloshed over the rim, splattering the hearth. You're out, Alexis. End of story. Mom glided in then, heels clicking softly on the hardwood, a plain ticket in her hand. We've booked you to Seattle, she said, her tone clipped and clinical as she handed it over. Your uncle's firm has an opening. A clean break. Seattle. I laughed bitterly, flicking the ticket onto the desk. What am I? Some disgraced princess you're shipping off to exile? Or you're cut off, Charles said, stepping closer, his voice like ice. No severance, no connections, no family money. Your call. Before I could fire back, the door burst open, hinges groaning. Grandpa Edward stormed in, silver hair wild, cane thumping the floor with every furious step. Charles, you damn fool, he roared, his voice a thunderclap that shook the room. She's the best of you, and you're too stupid to see it. Stay out of this, Dad. Charles growled, jaw tightening. Edward's piercing blue eyes softened as they landed on me. Alexis, come with me, he said, gentler now. We'll fight this together. You don't deserve this. I wanted to collapse into his arms, the one person who'd always believed in me, teaching me shipping routes over dinner while Nathan chased girls, praising my grit when I graduated top of my class. But the betrayal stung too deep. Mom's indifference, Dad's axe, Nathan's glee. No, Grandpa, I whispered, tears burning my eyes. They've made their choice. I turned and walked out, the rain swallowing me as I descended the mansion's marble steps. The storm raged outside, but inside, something sharper ignited, a cold, dangerous fire. They thought they'd broken me. They'd just handed me the match. I checked into a midtown hotel that night, a grim joint with flickering fluorescent lights, a lumpy mattress and wallpaper curling at the edges. My suit, still damp, clung to me as I collapsed onto the bed, laptop open. An HR email confirmed 6 months severance, $50,000, wired to my account before they'd locked me out of everything Bennett. It was all I had left in a city that ate dreamers alive. Staring at the cracked ceiling, I replayed the boardroom disaster. Nathan's smirk, Dad's verdict, Mom's apathy. Then I pulled up the contract, the maritime sale that had torched my career. I'd cursed myself 100 times for the oversight, but something gnawed at me. The formatting was off, single-spaced headers instead of my usual double. Section 4's wording was sloppy, not my tight legalese. I'd drafted dozens of contracts. I had a system. This wasn't mine. Heart pounding, I logged into my encrypted backup drive, a paranoid habit from Wharton after a classmate swiped my notes. There it was, my original draft, timestamped 2:47 a.m., 3 weeks back. The valuation was spot on, $1.2 billion, based on the latest fleet expansion. The language was crisp, the layout perfect. Someone had swapped it with a doctored mess to make me look like a fool. Nathan. His smug face burned in my mind. He'd hated me since we were teens, me spouting shipping stats at dinner, Dad nodding while Nathan sulked. I got into Wharton. He settled for Dartmouth. This wasn't about protecting the company. It was revenge, a play to erase me from the succession line and lock in his crown. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, snapping me out of it. A text from an unknown number. Watch.
Wait.
Learn.
E. Grandpa.
Of course it was him. Edward Bennett hadn't turned a Queen's shipping yard into a global empire by being naive. He saw everything, every scheme, every crack. He knew what Nathan had done. I crossed to the window, rain streaking the glass, my reflection pale and fierce against the blurred city lights. They tried to bury me, to scrub me from the legacy I'd been raised to uphold. But I wasn't done. Grief hardened into resolve. This wasn't my end, it was their beginning. By dawn, I'd packed my life into a suitcase, clothes, laptop, a framed photo of me and Grandpa at my graduation, and caught a train to Boston. I rented a desk in a co-working space under my middle name, Marie, shedding the Bennett label like dead skin. Within a week, I'd filed for Astromar Logistics, a lean, no-nonsense outfit built on the maritime smarts I'd soaked up since childhood. Nathan had the headlines and the corner office. I had the late nights, the strategy, the quiet lessons from Grandpa while Nathan chased glory. Buried in my original contract was Clause 23.4, subsection B, right of first refusal on all Pacific Rim routes and infrastructure if maritime restructured. I'd tossed it in at 3 a.m. during a caffeine binge, a precaution that meant nothing then.
Now?
A $400 million ace up my sleeve Nathan didn't even know existed. Grandpa's text started a few days later, short and coded, always from burners. Singapore lane manifests, delays piling up. Nathan's burying port fee losses in the Anderson deal. Stock filings next quarter, watch close. We met once a month at a Connecticut diner, a vinyl booth in the back where no one would spot us. He'd slide a leather folder across the table, shipping routes, expiring licenses, financials, and sip his black coffee, eyes twinkling. "They'll regret this," he said at our first meet, voice low and steady. "You're the real Bennett, Alexis. Not that strutting peacock." "Why didn't you stop them?" I asked, flipping through a stack of Port Authority contracts, frustration simmering. He grinned, a rare flash of teeth. "You needed to learn to stop them yourself. Steel's forged in fire, kid." Astromar grew in the shadows. I started small, deals with Seattle port operators, then Tokyo, then Singapore, routes Nathan ignored while he jetted off to galas. I vetted every hire myself, picking loyalty and hustle over polish. A scrappy ex-dock worker turned analyst, a logistics whiz who'd been overlooked by bigger firms. My team of 5 didn't know my real name, just that I delivered results, fast and clean. We snagged contracts with mid-tier shippers, untangled bottlenecks the giants couldn't touch, built a rep as the industry's quiet killer. I didn't date, didn't party. After a charming consultant named Mark, someone I'd trusted, fed Nathan my early plans, I welded that door shut. My nights were spreadsheets and coffee, my days were negotiations, my weekends were diner meets with Grandpa. He taught me the game, how to spot a lie in a balance sheet, how to turn a rival's slip into leverage, how to bide my time. 2 years in, the crack showed. I'd landed a big client, a Seattle shipping firm with Pacific routes that could have doubled Astromar's reach. We'd spent months negotiating, my team pulling all-nighters to seal it. Then, 3 days before signing, they bailed. No explanation, just a curt email. "We're going another direction." I found out later Nathan had swooped in, dangling Bennett Global's name and undercutting my rates with money he didn't even have. The hit was brutal. That deal was half our projected revenue. My bank account, already stretched thin from startup costs, dipped to $3,200. Rent was due in a week, payroll in 2. I sat in a dingy Boston cafe that night, rain tapping the window, staring at my laptop as the bank app mocked me with red numbers. My coffee had gone cold, the mug chipped at the rim. My team was counting on me, 5 people who'd bet on my vision, and I was failing them. I pulled out a notebook and started writing a letter I'd never send, pen shaking in my hand. "Maybe you were wrong about me, Grandpa. Maybe they all were. I thought I could do this, build something, prove them wrong. But I'm drowning. Nathan's winning, and I'm just tired. Maybe I should have taken that ticket to Seattle." I tore the page out, crumpled it, and shoved it into my bag. The weight of it all, 3 years of grinding, betrayal, isolation, pressed down like a vice. I pictured walking away, disappearing into some quiet life, letting Nathan have his hollow victory. For the first time, giving up didn't feel like defeat, it felt like relief. My phone buzzed, jolting me. A text from a burner. "Don't blink, kid. Storm's almost over."
E.
I stared at it, breath catching. Grandpa's timing was uncanny, like he'd sensed me teetering on the edge. I thought of his voice at that diner, steady and sure. Steels forged in fire. I'd come too far to break now. I closed my laptop, paid for the coffee with my last $10, and walked back into the rain. The storm wasn't over, but neither was I. Bennett Global started cracking in late 2024. Trade journals buzzed with whispers, late shipments from Long Beach, unpaid suppliers in Hong Kong, a 5% stock dip Nathan waved off as market jitters. He plastered over it with PR, Forbes covers, Singapore CEO handshakes, talk of bold expansion. To the world, he was the visionary heir. I saw the rot. He'd leveraged maritime, our bedrock, to bankroll his ego, borrowing hundreds of millions against inflated numbers. His Singapore deal, his big flex, was a shell game, fake revenue hiding port fee losses and crumbling fleets. Grandpa's texts had tipped me off, and his last folder, handed over in January 2025, laid it bare. Nathan's mortgaged our future, he said, voice gravelly, hands trembling as he pushed the papers across the diner table. Singapore's a mirage. Maritime's the collateral, and it's bleeding. I flipped through. Licenses expiring in 18 months, tied to clause 23.4. It's almost time, I said, meeting his gaze. He nodded, tapping the folder. Those routes are yours when he restructures. He's too arrogant to see it. 2 months later, March 2025, Grandpa was gone. Stroke, they said, peaceful at 78. I didn't believe it. Nathan's recklessness, the stress of watching his empire fray, had killed him. I felt it in my gut. The funeral was a sham. Nathan droning a hollow eulogy, Mom and Dad posing in designer black, board members whispering stock prices in the pews. I stood in the back, unnoticed in a sleek black suit, anger simmering. They saw me. Mom's eyes flickered with guilt. Dad's hardened with irritation. Nathan sneered, a quick flash of teeth. No one approached. I wasn't there to mourn. I was there to mark their downfall. March 27, 2025. Fog smothered New York as I stepped off the elevator at Whitmore Legal Group, my tailored charcoal suit sharp, heels clicking like gunfire on the marble floor. The conference room went dead silent when I walked in. Nathan dropped his coffee, the mug shattering, brown liquid pooling at his feet. Mom's composure cracked, her hand shaking on her pearls. Dad's jaw clenched, gray eyes narrowing. Alexis, he rasped, voice raw. Surprise, I said, sliding into the head chair with a razor-thin smile. Miss me? Mr. Whitmore, Grandpa's lawyer for 40 years, adjusted his glasses and opened a leather folder. Edward's instructions are unconventional, he said, cutting through the tension. Nathan snorted, leaning back, trying to claw back control. Just read it, Whitmore. Some of us have a company to run. Whitmore began. Antique jewelry to Mom, who dabbed at crocodile tears, endowments to staff, a $2 million Queen's charity gift. Dad nodded at the numbers, oblivious. Then the hammer dropped. To Nathan, Whitmore read, pausing, a warning. You betrayed your sister for power you don't understand. You doctored her contract. Here's the proof. He slid my original draft onto the table, $1.2 billion valuation, pristine, stapled to forensic data, Nathan's digital fingerprints, timestamps from 2 days before the board meeting. Nathan shot up, chair scraping. This is bullshit. You can't prove. Already did. I cut in, tossing clause 23.4 beside it. Your Singapore deal triggered this. I own the Pacific routes, $400 million in assets. Without them, your collateral's dust, and your deal's dead. The room exploded. Board members yanked out phones, barking orders. Legal aides scrambled through binders. Dad turned on Nathan, face crimson. Is this true? I had to protect us. Nathan stammered, swagger crumbling. She'd ruin everything, Dad. She's always been your golden girl. I couldn't let her take what's mine. Take what's yours. I stepped closer, voice low and lethal. You've been jealous since we were kids. Science fair? My rocket won. You smashed it. School play? I got the lead, you lost my costume. This was never about the company. It's you hating that I'm better. He lunged, grabbing my arm. You don't deserve. I yanked free, shoving him back hard enough that he crashed into his chair. Touch me again, and you're in cuffs by noon, I hissed, eyes blazing. Whitmore cleared his throat. More. Edward transfers 51% of Bennett Global and all trust voting rights to Alexis. Effective immediately. Silence slammed down, thick and suffocating. Nathan's face drained white, hands shaking. Mom gasped, mascara streaking. Dad gripped the table, staring like I'd risen from the grave. You're broke, Nathan, I said, smoothing my jacket. Clear your office by 5. I'm moving in. The door creaked open, slow and heavy. A shadow filled the frame, tall, silver-haired, leaning on a cane. Gasps ricocheted through the room. Edward Bennett stepped in, alive, blue eyes burning. Grandpa. I whispered, heart stopping. Surprise, kid, he said, voice rough but steady, a faint smirk tugging his lips. Not done teaching you yet. Nathan staggered back, ashen. You're dead. We buried you. Faked it, Edward said, limping forward, cane tapping. Stroke, funeral, all staged. Had to see who'd sink or swim. You drowned, Nathan. Alexis flew. Dad found his voice, cracked and raw. Dad, what the hell is this? A test, Edward said, gaze sweeping the room before locking on me. You all failed her, threw her out like garbage. I didn't. She's the future. I stared at him, relief crashing into betrayal. You let me think you were gone, I said, voice breaking. I mourned you. He rested a hand on my shoulder, firm and warm. Had to, Alexis. You needed to fight alone. Prove your steel. You did, better than I dreamed. Then came the second shock. Whitmore coughed, flipping a page. One final note. Edward acknowledges a silent partner in Alexis's rise. Someone inside Bennett Global fed her intel, covered her tracks. That partner is Victoria Bennett. The room spun. I turned to Mom, her face pale, eyes wide with something I hadn't seen in years. Fear, guilt, pride. Mom, she stood, shaky, pearls clutched tight. I couldn't watch them destroy you, Alexis. Not completely. I slipped Edward your backups, tipped him on Nathan's moves. I owed you that much. Nathan screamed, You traitoress. Shut it, Edward snapped, cane slamming the floor. She picked the winning side. You didn't. I stared at Mom, reeling. The woman who'd iced me out had been my shadow ally. It didn't erase the hurt, but it cracked something open. Anger, yes, but also a thread of understanding. The room dissolved into chaos. Nathan's shouts, bored panic, Dad's stunned silence. I stood with Grandpa, Queen and King, Mom a wild card at my flank. They'd underestimated me. Now they'd bleed for it. I walked out as the world caught fire. Stocks spiked 12%, press swarmed, board confirmations flooded my inbox. Nathan fled to Switzerland that night, holding up with empty lawsuit threats. Dad's terse apologies and Mom's tearful letters hit my shredder unopened. I wasn't ready for that yet. Grandpa took a guest office next day. Retirement scrapped. Can't let you hog the glory, he winked, diving into files with his black coffee. We rebuilt fast. Astromar's crew merged in, Nathan's cronies out, old guard in line. Employees who'd suffered under him. Overworked, ignored, caught me in the halls with quiet nods, shoulders straighter. By Q2, Bennett Global wasn't just back. It dominated. Maritime stabilized, profits soared, stock hit a record. But the wins I savored weren't numbers. It was Dad dodging my gaze in the lobby, Mom's lunch invites I ghosted, Nathan's absence from the empire he'd claimed. Late April, I sat in my office, Grandpa's old 47th floor perch, city lights glittering below. On my desk, framed, was that doctored contract, my battle scar turned trophy. My phone buzzed, a scheduled text from Grandpa. Checkmate, Alexis. Queen wins.
E.
Attached. Me, rain-soaked, hollow-eyed, the night they fired me. He'd snapped it without me knowing. Back then, I looked shattered. Now I saw fire, steel forged in betrayal. Mom's roll still gnawed at me. I flashed to a memory. Her slipping me a coffee at 16 during a late-night study session, a rare soft moment. Had she been rooting for me all along? Even through the ice? I didn't know. Maybe I'd ask. Not today. I leaned back, smiling. They'd cast me out, tried to erase me. I'd returned, not their daughter, but their boss. This empire was mine. By the way, if you enjoyed Alexis's story, her rise from the ashes to building an empire, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll keep bringing you thrilling, inspiring stories like this, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single twist.